Hello everyone, this is Dan coming back with the final of this little tier maker mini-series surrounding the Resident Evil series. The last two were involving the hero characters and then the BOW creatures, villains, all of that good stuff. So we have to get to the main thing, the most important thing, the games themselves. For starters, there are some I have not played, which include Darkside Chronicles, Dead Aim, Gaiden, Gun Survivor 2, Mercenaries, Outbreak File 2, and Umbrella Corps. For one reason or another, none of these have happened yet. Some of them I aim to get to, in particular Gaiden and Dead Aim. The rest may or may not happen. Big thing with this list, though, of course, comes to the idea that this is just my opinion. You don't have to agree, you don't have to disagree. Let's just all be nice about it. It's that easy. All right. So we'll start at the very. What I'm gonna do here is we go S through F, and I'm gonna put them in order I would like rank them to. So left to right on each tier kind of factors in as well. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with, Resident Evil 1. Resident Evil 1 is actually a game that's kind of, oddly enough, as old as it is and how many times I've played it over the course of my life, the game has grown on me in the past year or so, far more. Now, I put it at the A tier because, yes, the voice acting is cheesy, the director cut music is cringy, but, at the end of the day, this game actually plays pretty well still. You have to be apt at, more than able with tank controls and everything. But the game plays well. It's still a fun playthrough. It does everything it intends to do. It sets the series in a great path. I think it's a very solid pick for an A tier game. Now, how could you improve? Well, you beat Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2 Classic is a masterpiece. Both campaigns are excellent. The way they interlock the A and B scenarios for both characters is supreme. Mr. X, I think, is handled perfectly in the B scenarios. It's scary, it's fun, the iconic scenes, the iconic jump scares, everything about it works. The music you're listening to right now in the background, Resident Evil 2. This game is probably the most, you could say Resident Evil 1 is the most important horror game ever, because it is the first one, so it does have that. But to me, as far as being that big breakthrough, this is the Final Fantasy VI to this game's Final Fantasy VII. And not so much maybe quality-wise, but I'm just saying, this one introduced a lot of fans, but this is the one that made survival horror truly big. And, just a tremendous video game. If you've not played it, it still holds up today, and it's a great companion to the remake. We'll get to Remake 1 in a bit. This game does not eliminate the purpose, or the remake did not eliminate this game's purpose. You can still play them both and get unique quality experiences out of them. So we'll go right into Resident Evil 3. As you can tell, I really like the old ones. Resident Evil 3 is a tremendous game again. We're starting at a very high point, which makes doing a list like this a little weird because it's going to fluctuate here soon enough, don't worry. But Nemesis masterfully handled. I think the pacing and the placement of him is spot on, which is what I really hope Remake 3 can achieve, where he's always a threat, but you also have time to do what you need to do to progress the game. Nothing worse to me than having a roadblock like a Nemesis or whatever, and having to turn and deal with him so much that it feels like you're taking one step forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, constantly, and you're not getting it far enough you're not getting anywhere really, because you're just stuck in the loop of dealing with the monster or whatever, and you just want to progress the damn game. But 3 avoids this really well. The choice system is awesome. Jill is a total badass, pushes Nemesis off the clock tower, which is one of my favorite RE moments. And of course, the iconic stars, I'll give you stars line at the end. Just great stuff all around. It's one I've actually I would have probably put in the B list for a while, but once I started my Twitch stream and I started playing these games a little more regularly again, it's grown on me again. Much like the original one, the games have grown on me, and it's just so damn good. I really hope. I'm sure it will. It will stand up even after the remake is out. I have good confidence in that. So after that, we'll go ahead and let me find it on here. Resident Evil Survivor. All right, now Survivor gets an F because it is an atrocious game. Like the it looks just terrible graphics. The controls are a mess. The sound effects are wonky and weird. The story is kind of all over the story is kind of forgettable. I do like the idea of being the island that kind of grows tyrants. That's actually not too bad. The idea of that. And but the thing is, and this game deserves credit for this. This game, I would say, is more fun than stuff you're going to see on the D tier. But I'm talking. This is kind of mostly a gauge on the quality of the game. Let me be clear on that now. This is the quality of the game, in my eyes. How much fun am I going to have playing it? And how memorable is it for high points and stuff like that? So, this game fails in every technical regard, really. But it is a meme fest. It is hilarious at times. I mean, I was legit laughing out loud on my stream playing this game the last time. It was my first time playing it in over 20 years, and it was just a riot. I'll be playing this one again soon, and yeah, so this game gets a low score here, but it's one of those F in our heads, but a in our hearts, kind of deals. So that leads us to Code Veronica, another strong entry from the classic series. Code Veronica, it's maybe the weirdest entry in the series, or it's close anyway. It's where you could tell Resident Evil was maybe starting to go off the rails a little bit. The Ashfords are bizarre, but I think they're effective. I think both of them are actually effective. Steve is a mess. I mean, Steve is hilarious, but he's cringy. I mean, he causes a giant gas leak in the Antarctic base because he's staring at Claire's ass. The father scene. But Claire is amazing in this game. Chris is amazing in this game. Wesker is amazing in this game. I like the hunters. I like even the stalker. Or I forget what they're always called. I always get their names mixed up. The seekers, I believe they are. The poison hunters. I like that idea. I think the look of them is cool. They're a little trolly, but that's okay. The Bandersnatch is crappy. That I would say really what kind of holds this game from an S, if you're wondering, would be probably the Bandersnatch is bad. There's a bit too much backtracking. And I mean, because you go through the same areas a number of times, even by Resident Evil standards. And the game does have the problem. When you're playing it for the first time, if you don't know what is coming, you can easily get yourself into a spot where you'll game over. And there's, you could be an excellent player, but you just won't have the equipment for the situation or something like that. It's kind of sad to say that, but it does kind of that's what holds it back. Because I think otherwise, on like its strengths, it's probably up here in the S. It's just it has a few weaknesses that do hold it back to an A. But again, nothing to scoff at here. I think A tier is truly excellent. Like S is like timeless. A is probably timeless, but just not quite there. Yeah, these two, there's not much. It's good stuff. Okay, so after Code Veronica, we will go to Resident Evil Remake, which, if you know me, is gonna be way up here. There's an argument to be made that I probably am in this camp too. Resident Evil Remake might be the greatest survival horror game ever made. Its atmosphere is perfect. It is exactly what a remake should be too. It takes everything strong with the original, enhances it, and then builds upon it to add more. Like, it adds Lisa Trevor, who might end up actually being the most memorable part of that game. And it's just thinking like an addition like her is maybe the best part of your game. That's amazing. And the defense items are really cool. The Crimson Heads are amazing. It is just an exceptional video game. And then the HD remaster came out, which gave the ability for the analog controls as well. So you can mix that with the D-pad if you wanted, the D-pad tank controls if you wanted. Just an exceptional video game. Yeah, I mean, like, it belongs in that very special group with Resident Evil 2, Silent Hill 2, and yeah, it's just the premier survival horror experience. Unfortunately, it is followed by Resident Evil 0. Resident Evil 0 came out not even a year after Remake, and to me it nearly killed the series. I mean, the sales just were low for Remake even because the GameCube just was not the platform those games should have been on, but that's a whole nother thing. But 0 is to me, this game has a backing that I don't quite understand. A lot of the games you'll see on my lower tiers kind of fall into that. 0 does as much as it can be to not be fun. It has a clunky, messy inventory system. I mean, the idea of just putting an item on the ground is nice in the sense that it makes sense. That's like a real thing that would happen instead of having a magic box. But it doesn't work in a video game. And managing 2 inventories on top of that, not to mention you have to worry about bringing that stupid hook shot across the entire game. I believe you use it all the way up until the second to last area. You'll use it an extra time than you think you will. I guarantee that. But on top of that, the leads, Rebecca and Billy, I think, are both weak leads. To me, Rebecca, I think she gets cuteness points. Maybe that's why she's so popular. I kind of alluded to this in the hero list. I have never found her to be a very interesting character. And Billy is kind of a douche. I mean, let's be honest. The way he talks to Rebecca, but just... I don't know. To me, I was talking about this in chat where I would think this game would have been stronger with Enrico as the lead, and maybe have him paired with Billy, or just have Enrico as the lead and that's it. I honestly think I would have liked that combination a little bit better. But the game has weak bosses as well. Maybe the weakest boss lineup in the series. The Stinger Scorpion's probably the best, and it's not great. I mean, the bat is a nightmare. That is a disaster of an enemy. Camera angle failure, just frustrating fight. And the Centipede just absorbs your ammo. The Proto-Tyrant's actually probably the best fight. I'll take that back. It's probably the best. But just a weak entry, really. I think my appreciation for the Wesker Marcus Birkin information, that has all gone up over the years. I actually do like that aspect of the game. That's probably what keeps it above an F. And it is very, very atmospheric. It is a gorgeous game. It takes the same stuff Remake did and kind of does it again. But especially in the train section at the very beginning. But it's just everywhere else, aside from that backstory stuff and that atmosphere, it drops the ball. And it's a bummer. I really hate saying that, because oddly enough, as much as this game has enhanced over my, or maybe even these two have gone from like B to A, this game, Zero for me for the longest time, has kind of just decayed down. I feel like I have less fun the more I do it. Maybe because the mystery of it is gone. I don't know, but it feels like a chore anytime to go through it now. Even on like a fun marathon or something like that. So thankfully though, the faults of Zero led to the successes and the colossal successes that were Resident Evil 4. Now note, I put it above Remake, but I don't consider this this is the survival horror. This is like an action horror. And 4 is, to me, it's my favorite video game. I'm very comfortable saying that. I think it is the pinnacle game. It is such a video gamey game, if that makes any sense, where it's perfectly over the top in all the right ways. Cool, awesome weapons. I think Leon is an effective lead, especially in that game. Ada is awesome as the cat in the full Catwoman mode to his Batman. She really feels like a spy in this one more than ever. I think Sadler is a effective villain, although I think Krauser is the best villain in that game. Just awesome boss fights across the board. Del Lago, Mendez, again Krauser, all like U3, all of those top-notch fights. El Gigante as well. You can just go on. The music is great. At the look of the game, it holds up today. But when it came out, it was the most stunning game I've ever seen. Just the opening village sequence with the chainsaw guys running at you, all these villagers. The suspense of it. See, because it's not necessarily a scary video game. It is some scary moments here or there where you're like, oh. But where it trades in fear for suspense. There's a difference there, and you're going to have your adrenaline triggering in the same way, or well, you're going to have the same adrenaline triggers from a different source, but you're going to get that same rush that I think makes it so effective. To me, it is as perfect as a game can be. There's nothing perfect, because if it was perfect, you probably wouldn't be sitting there agreeing with or disagreeing, saying, hey, you're full of shit, this is a crappy game, or this belongs on B tier or whatever. Everybody would love it if it was perfect. Truly perfect. But for me, it is. Or, well, whatever. But, I guess that there's a gripe to be made. Obviously, Ashley is a very common point of complaint. I'll say this about Ashley. I kind of alluded to this in the hero one, like Rebecca. I think Ashley's mechanics are fine. They're, like, to me, like, she ducks when you aim at her. If she gets stuck on an enemy, that means it gets grabbed. You should be shooting her. This is something I know a lot of people hate hearing. I feel like Ashley gets blamed for players' mistakes a lot. She's the scapegoat of where we won't want to admit we screwed something up. I'm not saying she's perfect, but I would bet about 90% of the time she's complained about, she's probably not at fault. I know, again, you're probably saying, hey, you're full of shit and closing this video down or whatever, but, I'm pretty well convinced that's the case after all the time I've spent playing it over the years. I cannot defend her loud, shrill voice. It makes the ears bleed, especially when you're at the island and she's locked in a cell. That, to me, is the absolute worst. but that's such a small portion of the game. Ashley as a whole is in a lot less of the game than it seems. I think the perception is that she's in it. I mean, I've heard people say it should have been a co-op game, and she's not in it that much. I think she's in maybe 20 to 30% of the game, actually as an active party member with you. It's a lot less than you'd think. If you just go and play it again, it shows up. But anyway, Resident Evil 4 just, to me, is a triumph of a video game. A true accomplishment. I think even if you're not a fan of horror, of action horror, whatever, even the most cynical of game player can at least find something to appreciate about it. Yeah, just a hell of an experience. Which will bring us to Resident Evil. We'll do. Let's see here. I was kind of doing these in order, but we'll do Umbrella Chronicles next. I'm gonna throw Umbrella Chronicles as a C. I think Umbrella Chronicles is a successful game for what it's trying to be. The thing is, it's like, I really appreciate it from a lore standpoint. And now some of the stuff it kind of added in on its own right, not so much. But having played it again here recently, the game plays pretty well. I played the Wii version, so I'm not a huge motion controller guy, but it worked very well. I liked all the backstory stuff. I liked, especially playing as Wesker and escaping the mansion in the first game. Stuff like that, I really enjoyed. I was kind of surprised, which does have me wanting to try Darkside Chronicles, although I've heard there's some weird blur issues and problems in this game. Somebody might be able to confirm that for me. I'm not sure, so I might go ahead and take a look at this one eventually. But yeah, I ended up liking this game a lot. It's, yeah, not bad at all. Which will bring us to Umbrella. I think I'm doing this is out of order. Operation Raccoon City. What a mess. Oh my god, what happened here? Now this game, like I said, this Survivor at least has the meme factor going for it. There's nothing memey about Operation Raccoon City. I mean, it's a playable game, but it's so uninspired. Just boring. I hate using that word for it, but it really is boring. And it's, I mean, it's just not well made. You can tell the A team and the B team on a lot of these games, and this is the C team. What a mess. I mean, I actually had higher hopes for this game. I ended up pre-ordering it way long ago because I was at a point where if I heard Resident Evil, I was instantly sold. I didn't pay attention to who was developing it or anything like that, and I wish I had. But it really didn't work out. And it's kind of a bummer. I have a feeling it's still better than Umbrella Corp from what I've heard about that, but I'm not willing to find out. I know that game isn't for me, so I'm not worried about that. So here we go. This is going to be a controversial one. I'm putting Resident Evil Outbreak as a D. I honestly could put this game as an F if I were really thinking, but I'm going to put it as a D. Now, this game, I think if you're a fan of this game, I want you to go and play. Let me show the situation I was playing this game in. I played this game for the first time probably a year ago now on the PlayStation. I played the PS2 version, so I was playing it totally offline. There was no co-op campaign. I played it with the AI partners, which were terrible. Always spamming text and their voice lines and shit, and it was annoying. I mean, I just didn't have fun playing it at all. I saw the potential, though. There were a couple of levels. I can't remember which ones now. I want to say it was like the 3rd or 4th level in there There was some really good stuff in there, though. And that's why I don't put it as an F. But it was too spread out and too hard to appreciate playing alone. I have a feeling now, if you're playing this game co-op, it probably goes higher. But I was not able to experience it that way. And I'm not going to bump it ranks on a what if, because, it may not be better. I don't know. But, it just wasn't very good. I think this game, though, does get a bit more praise than it's probably deserving because of Nostalgia Online memories. And I don't know, like, it feels like a lot of Resident Evil horror stuff gets elevated more because it is in the horror meld. And the idea, the concept of this game almost elevates it beyond what it is a little bit too. Again, that's just my opinion. So just take it with the idea that, again, I am very limited in seeing the game for what it could be. So yeah, that's kind of where it is. Resident Evil Revelations, another D slot. I'll put it above Outbreak though. Resident Evil Revelations, obviously, on the 3DS is a hell of an accomplishment. I think Jill is pretty good in it. Chris is pretty good in it. Probably their worst versions, but still pretty solid. The side characters beyond those two are all across the board awful. I think the hunters, enemies all overall are all pretty weak. Some of the designs are okay, but the ooze are just lame. I hate to say it. I mean, I'm not a zombie fan really, but they had me cravings like to fight some zombies. I never have quite gotten these games because Revelations 2. I'll go ahead and throw out Revelations 2. It's gonna be just above there. Alright, so kind of transitioning into Revelations 2 with this, because it's going to be the same idea. These games, I think, have a problem of wanting to be a little bit action, following Resident Evil 4, but they want to be horror, and they instead of excelling anywhere, they maintain this mediocre level in the middle that I don't think they're ever scary, either of them, at all. I would say 4 is more, I don't want to say scary, but at least it's suspenseful compared to either of the Revelations games. I don't get that vibe at all from them. And I think Revelations 2 is a little better. It has, I like the Alex Wesker villain a lot better than, I couldn't even tell you the name of the villain from Revelations 1. Barry, Moira, really all the playable characters are fine. Although it's the worst version of Claire by a mile. Claire is a little off in that Revelations 2, but Barry's effective. He's Barry, he does what he does. A problem with these two games, though, too, and I noticed this, I just played Revelations 2, just finished it yesterday, in fact. The games are kind of boring. And again, it kind of goes to that where they don't find that right midpoint. I just find them boring to play. Like, there's a lot of empty tasks you're doing, like in episode, I believe it was 4 or 3 for Barry, maybe it was 3, you're doing this long drawn out conveyor belt puzzle to get this power block across this construction site or whatever it was, and it's just a lot of boring tasks like that. Yeah, you fight some monsters along the way, but it's not fun. And the monsters are uninspired. I think aside from Alex Wesker and a few other things, minor enemies in Revelations 1, it's kind of a failure across the board in both games. To the point that I'll say, even though I have plenty of problems I mentioned with Zero, at least Zero has its identity in the right place, in that it is a horror game. Its atmosphere is far better. Now, it has problems with its inventory and gameplay ideas, But if you give, yeah, I guess that's just kind of where I sit on it. So we'll do Resident Evil 5. Much better. Much better. I put give it a solid B. Actually, I would give Resident Evil 5 an A slot if it wasn't for the fact that co-op is required. And now, is it truly required? No. But the AI partner is not good. Even if you support them the right way, they still just don't do what you need them to enough. But the strong aspects of the game is it is a beautiful game. The enemies are great. The bosses are fantastic. I love Irving. He's way over the top and ridiculous, sure. But he is a hell of a lot of fun to fight. And he's just... his character just as a whole is wonderful. But then, of course, it has Wesker. And Wesker, the building of Wesker from 1 to Code Veronica to 5 was maybe the best character arc of the series. And he has just gone out of his mind at this point. And I think they hit him as that comic book level villain perfectly in 5. And he is just... he's awesome. He's great. It's one of my favorite villain encounters is him in the final chapters of 5. Yeah, and it's a situation too where I knew I liked Wesker I knew Wesker was effective because he was so damn awesome that he stole every scene he's in, but I was still happy to see him lose. And that's how you do a great villain, I think, and he hits that. Now, Resident Evil 6. The controversial Resident Evil 6 is a C tier. Yes, a C tier. Now you might be thinking, oh, you're full of shit. There's no way it's better than Revelations. There's no way it's better than 0. Is it over the top? Yes. Is it the dumbest game maybe ever made? Yeah, probably. Is it fun? I think it's fun. Now, okay, in terms of its graphics, amazing. Beautiful, beautiful game. Voice acting, excellent. Gameplay, really solid. I think it just keeps building off of what 4 and 5 kind of established and does it pretty well. It plays much better than Revelations 2. Oh my god. I played both of these within a week of each other, and I 100% will say 6 plays better. My view of 6 is, you might be saying it's not a Resident Evil game. Well, you know what? It has Resident Evil in its title, so it's a Resident Evil game. Is it great as a horror game? Of course not. There's no way. Is it a great game, though? Let's take a look at it. You think about it, this game came out in the height of the co-op action era, where there were so many games, there was Fear 3, there was Army of 2, Kane and Lynch, Halo, Gears of War, so many along the way there. I would say Resident Evil 6 is better than all of them, with the exception of Halo, Gears of War, and Resident Evil 5. But it's better than Kane and Lynch, it's better than Army of 2. If you take it that way, you sit down, you play it with a friend, you're gonna have a pretty fun time. Now, if you're playing it expecting, Resident Evil Remake, or Resident Evil 4 even, you're gonna be upset. And rightfully so. If that's what you're expecting and that's what you absolutely want and have to have, then fine, that's more than fair. But taking it as a wider viewpoint, perhaps not to sound condescending here, but limiting your view to just such a singular thing and taking what is as it is, it belongs on this spot. It is on the C tier for sure. I think the Leon campaign is the best, followed by Ada, then Jake, then Chris. Chris is the only one I would really say is on the weaker side. Chris is probably a D, Leon's probably a B, and then the other two are C's if I were to break the campaigns down. Jake's does have one of my favorite villains, Ustanak. or Ustanak. I don't know how you actually say his name. I don't think it's ever actually spoken in the game. That is actually one of my favorite villains in the series. He's a really cool take on Nemesis, in my opinion. And so yeah. I mean, I think that's all I gotta say about 6. I just hope if you dismissed it right away because of somebody saying it's bad or something like that, go ahead and play it. Play it again if you didn't like it, and just try and look at it from the point of view of it as an action co-op game. Maybe have that initial bad taste kind of in your mouth that maybe you can play it again and get rid of. Something along those lines, because I think there's fun to be had with it. I'm not the champion of the Resident Evil 6 fan club here. I'm just someone that doesn't like to see something that's not terrible get treated like it is. When there's plenty of games in this series that it's better than. Alright, that'll bring us to Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 will fit comfortably onto the B tier. I like RE7 a lot. As you've seen on YouTube, there's a lot of content. I speedrun the game a lot. I'm actually learning the new game Madhouse speedrun as we speak. And I really like the game. It has its faults, though. The faults, first and foremost, I don't think Ethan was designed to make, in my opinion, I always saw Ethan being a more of an avatar for the VR experience. So most of what he does is kind of reflective of like what we would be doing. You know, like just how he reacts in general. So I think that made him a very underridden character. So I'll give him a pass even though he doesn't really deserve one. I'm just saying I think that was their plan and they didn't write him badly, but Mia is bad. Mia's awful. Her lie is stupid to Ethan. The fact that the Ethan character believes it makes me wonder about him more than anything. But the Bakers are terrific. I think Jack is one of the best characters in the series history. I think Marguerite is excellent. She's terrifying. She's nasty. She's something else. But then Lucas is very solid. And in doing this, by the way, this goes for Resident Evil 5 as well. I meant to mention this. I'm including the DLC kind of in this assessment. So Lost in Nightmares enhances Resident Evil 5 and Desperate Escape as well. But then the Not a Hero and End of Zoe and even the other modes, but those are the two main plot point ones. It enhances Lucas a lot, and I really like all the Bakers though, and so the boss fights are great with Jack. All the Jack fights, both Marguerite encounters, well, especially the second one, and then the Lucas one in the DLC. The problem is, after you kill Jack for the final time in the main game, you have to go through the boat. Everybody talks about the boat, and I'll talk about it too. It throws the pacing off way too much for as little actually happens in it. You get the flashback, and you see how Mia and Evelyn crashed and everything. The thing is, though, ultimately in that sequence, we really don't see much, if you think about it. You see the mold get on the boat, but we go through a lot to really get to Evelyn at the end of that, to ultimately just find out that the boat's gonna sink. Like, that tape should have been half the length, and maybe that would have helped, because right after it's over, sure enough, we're going through the boat again in the present time, and the whole section just never feels right. Just a bit of a blunder on the side of Capcom there, I think. And that's okay, because it just keeps it from being like an A. I think the Evelyn character develops well, especially if you read the files and everything. I'm fine with all of that. I think she's okay. She's like kind of like Alexia from Code Veronica, where I feel like she's more effective in the means of like files and hearsay than actually when they're on screen. But she's okay. She's okay, I think. I just think the section with the boat throws the pacing off so much. The game does play great, I think. It is every bit a Resident Evil 2. Don't even start with that whole thing. It is a Resident Evil game. It's not an Outlast clone. It's not a PT clone. This game was being developed before, well, I don't know if either of them came out, but you know what I mean. It was... Stop that. You have not played the game if you think that. It's in first person. That doesn't instantly make it a clone of one of those. But the game plays great. The shooting feels good. The menuing is terrific. It sounds so nerdy almost to say, but I want this to be the menuing for the series going forward. But yeah, the game is a true success to me. And it really lays groundwork. The problem is, maybe that groundwork isn't laid solid enough, but it does create a foundation for the plot to potentially really blossom in Resident Evil 8. And I think after 8 comes out and maybe expands on the whole thing, we'll be able to look back on the storyline of 7 more fondly as well. So, yeah, I think it's rightfully placed as a B. It has its faults, but it's solid. Last but not least, Resident Evil 2 Remake will be on the B tier. I'm not the biggest Remake 2 fan by any means. I mean, obviously I put it on the B tier here. The problem with Remake 2 starts with, well, it starts with the fact that it's not really a remake. Okay, that's a dumb statement. It is a remake, but it cuts content. And, I don't think they were wise in eliminating the idea of the characters crossing over. Meaning, like, in Claire's campaign, Mr. X dies, and yet Leon fights him as his final boss. That's where I think the game really lost its way, especially if you do like a scenario 1, scenario 2 setup. But the B scenario or second scenario as it's called in that, is just not nearly as fleshed out. And you're basically just doing the first scenario again with Mr. X showing up sooner, and more liquors and a few other little changes here and there. But at the end of the day, it's really all 4 campaigns are pretty similar. I mean, there's just not enough difference there. And you factor in that the game isn't all that much longer than the original one either. Like if it was twice as long as the original, I would say, okay, I get that. But it really isn't. Now, focusing on all the bad, there is a lot of good. I would say every character, with the exception of Leon, has been enhanced. Leon, I think, is kind of on par with the original, so he's fine. It's not a knock on him. But Claire, this is the best form of Claire I think the series ever saw was in Remake 2. She is a badass. When she goes and says she'll handle G3 herself and everything to Annette, that is amazing. And Kendo, I love how they changed him. He was a bit of a meme. Now he is just that gut-wrenching scene. Sherry is amazing. Sherry is a huge improvement. Ada is great. The one character that does get ripped off, though, is Ben. His best line is taken away from him, and he really just doesn't have much. He gets a bit of the shaft, but, that is what it is. Mr. X. Now, I honestly did not like Mr. X. Did he create some anxiety? Of course. Of course he did. The problem I had with Mr. X is his greatest weapon wasn't his strength or anything. It's the fact that he would run you into problems. meaning you're running from him, and by running from him, you're going to run into a zombie or a licker and take damage from them because he's bugging you. And just the fact that, like, when you're going to get to the clock tower, for example, and this is assuming you don't know the perfect route and everything, of course, it kind of is what I mentioned with Resident Evil 3 being a strength, is him being a weakness, in that you're just trying to get to the clock tower. It's like, okay, we kind of get your point, guy. Let us do what we need to do now. The fear of eventually turned to annoyance, in my opinion, anyway. I mean, some people love him, though. Some people love the game, you know. And the thing is with Resident Evil, I'll kind of wrap this up now, is no matter how you grade these out, you ask 10 people, odds are you're going to get 10 different answers. It's a great series. I don't consider most, like, I would even say 0 could, like, let's say you put 0 here, even though I'm not going to. I would say all this list, all the way up through 0, are good games. 0 has its faults, and, you know, maybe in these two as well, or their shortcomings, perhaps, are even. But these 9 are all really solid, strong video games. It's not a slight or a knock, in my opinion, to place these in any order. I mean, I've heard people say 0's in their top 5. I've heard people say 3 is by far their favorite. 4 is overrated. You know, anything. You know, there's any number of orders you can have with this series, and that's why it's so good. It's all taste. It's all just what clicks for you when you play it, maybe, whatever. And that's why I love playing Resident Evil. I'll keep making Resident Evil content for you guys. I also want to do other series, like we did Dino Crisis as a playthrough. Wouldn't mind doing more on that, more Silent Hill. But Resident Evil will always be the heart and soul of any video game creation I do, just because it deserves it. And I know a lot of people feel that way too, and a lot of channels feel that way and create a lot too. But you know, I hope you enjoyed this little series, this little look through the highs and the lows of the series. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, you know, who the hell am I? But you know, I'm somebody that's been a fan of the series since the second game came out back in 1998, and yeah, so just another guy like that. If you enjoyed the content, if you've enjoyed this series, if you want a lot of Resident Evil, if you want to talk Resident Evil, that above all else is what I love doing. Feel free to comment below, or if you want to interact live and, you know, just talk like how I'm talking now. I'm live 5 nights a week over at Twitch. My name on there is Dan Survival, same as it is here. It'll be linked in the description and everything. If you want more content, of course, sub on here. I would greatly appreciate it. I post a video every week now. Every Wednesday we'll be doing some form of original video, whether it's something like this, where I like doing videos like this where I more actively talk to you guys, or I'll do a video of a playthrough with either no commentary, or maybe I'll try some commentated runs. So if you have any suggestions there, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, that's about all I've got. I really appreciate you all watching. I hope you enjoyed this. You know, again, this is all just my opinion. We all have our own. And, yeah, I hope I didn't piss you off too much with mine. But yeah, have a nice night. And we'll see you in the next video. Take care.